Hey everybody, it is Mark Masters and it's Always Bookin Comedy. It's Monday night. Joseph is figuring something out right now, and I'm just going to chat with you for a moment. It's Joseph runs some incredible comedy shows. I can't wait to talk to him. And we'll get into it real soon. Let's see if I can mute. There we go. Okay, so you're just going to be able to chat with me for a second. And let me just let him know that I muted you. Give me a thumbs up when you can hear me. Okay. Let me also tell him that we are live. So, yeah, what can we talk about until Joseph gets on? I guess I'll tell you my experience with Joseph. Actually, this picture that's above me is from a show I did with Joseph. He's an incredible showrunner out in
Muted.
The Washington
area. And then I unmute it and I still can't hear you.
Okay. Check. Sounds like you still can't hear me. I'm gonna.
Still can't hear you. Maybe just give me 1 sec. All right.
Okay. So, anyways, we did a show together. And
here we go.
Oh, you can hear me?
I can hear you now.
Okay, terrific. We're live, everybody.
Woo!
Here we go.
I couldn't think of a better way to start the fucking live stream.
Monday night with Joseph Rogers, all the way from Bremerton, Washington. Kitsap Comedy. Joseph, tell us all about it. I did your show. It was incredible. You got a nice little scene out there.
Yeah, 13 years, going on 14 years in June now for just doing comedy in this area and building a scene from the ground up. Starting mics, getting people that wanted to come out and try stand-up comedy, and some never came back and some kept coming back. And so now we have a comedy scene here of about 12 local comics that are pretty regular and get booked on gigs outside of Kitsap now. So it's always exciting to see comics utilize these opportunities to get better and get booked.
That's amazing.
Not have to go to Seattle and Tacoma. They can just practice right here in Bremerton, 8 to 10 minutes at a time if they wanted to.
I love that. Can you, for people who aren't real familiar with the geography of your area, and you just alluded to it, not wanting to drive to Seattle or Tacoma, these bigger places, where you're on an island, right?
Yeah, it's a peninsula that has a small part of the land still connected to the mainland. So it's technically not an island, but there's a bridge that you have to drive across from Tacoma, or you can take a ferry. You can either drive onto the ferry or walk over to the ferry to Seattle to Bremerton. And it's an hour-long ferry ride if you take the vehicle ferry. So a lot of times I try to do a lot of my rooms walking distance from the ferry terminal. So that way comics from Seattle can just walk onto the ferry and walk over to the venue, and it'd be super ideal to travel that way.
That's incredible. Can you take the ferry back after a show, or do you have to book them early in the show, or how does that work?
So a few years ago, I changed my start times from 8 and 9 p.m. to 7 p.m. on most all my shows.
Okay.
That was one of the reasons, was to get them back on the 9 p.m. ferry going back to Seattle, because the next one wouldn't be till like 10:30 or something like that. So it was a pretty significant time frame on when they would be able to get home. So I also noticed that with the 7 p.m. start time, comedy seemed to flow better through the summer and also not conflict with other events that were going on Friday and Saturday nights. So a lot of times people would just go to the 7 p.m. comedy. It would get wrapped up around 8:15, 8:30, and then they can go do their 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock plans, whatever they are, go to a bar or go to a show, check out some bands, whatever it might be. So 7 p.m. I found is the time slot for comedy in this area.
Pro tip for everybody out there: make your comedy shows start at 7 p.m. Do your venues have windows? I often find that in the summer I do the opposite. I move the show times later so that it's at least dark outside when they start.
It's incredibly awkward to do comedy when the sun's out. I agree. But one of the rooms is my every Friday room, which is Dog Days Brewing. And it's a brewery with a garage door that opens up, and you can just lay chairs out on the sidewalk. So you have a mix of people in the brewery sitting down watching the comedy, and a mix of people standing outside or sitting outside on the sidewalk and watching the comedy from outside. So it's a nice vibe that really helps with the sun being on them and keeping them warm. But yeah, normally when the daylight savings comes in the fall and we get dark at 5:30, I mean, at 7 p.m. it's already dark, which is completely ideal.
Yeah.
But at the brewery, it's different than a bar that doesn't have windows. You're right. So I tend to do more brewery shows in the summertime for sure.
Okay, cool. How much does the ferry cost from Seattle?
It's a round rate trip, so you just pay like $12 to go there and back.
And how long does it take?
It's an hour for the vehicle ferry and 35 minutes for just the passenger ferry.
Huh, that's wild. And so the longer time is just because it takes a while to load all the cars?
It's a bigger boat. It's a way bigger boat.
Maybe it
Yeah.
goes slower because it's heavier or something.
Yeah, and it used to take 45 minutes, but then people that had a lot of money that had nice houses on the beach where the ferry was going, apparently the speed at which I was going was too fast and ruining these beaches on this property of these rich people. So of course they changed it and made everybody get there slower, so the rich people were happy about their beach not getting slammed by waves from the ferry.
That's hilarious. That's pretty neat. I don't think I've done hundreds of these episodes. I don't recall ever hearing about ferry as a transport mechanism to get to a comedy show. That's pretty neat. That's cool.
Yeah, and I've actually tried doing comedy shows on the ferry, but every time they tell me no, because there is a lobby on these ferries where you can go get a beer and some food and sit down. And so I'm thinking like 45-minute show,
Yeah.
and then the ferry drops off all those people and then new people get on and you go back. So round trip, you could potentially do 2 45-minute shows on the ferry for people that may not know that this is a thing, and just for extra exposure for local comedy in our area. And every time they say no. So
That's too bad. I did see, I did some whale watching once out on the East Coast, and there was like a little tabletopper thing somewhere that said they had like a nighttime dinner and drinks comedy thing on the whale watching boat. It wasn't whale watching. They were just repurposing the boat for this dinner. It was like a sunset cruise kind of thing with comedy, which I thought was fascinating. So you're barking up the right tree, or right boat, as it were.
Yeah, I mean, comedy on a ferry would be perfect. So
yeah, that's amazing. So, and that's pretty cool that you have access to all of the Seattle comedy scene for talent, whether they have a car or not, and your local folks. So how do you mix that up? Are the Seattle people, are they doing longer spots, or what's the dynamic between the local Kitsap scene and, am I saying that right? Is it Kitsap or is it Bremerton?
the brand is Comedy in Kitsap, because we do shows all over Kitsap. But the formula that we've kind of come to is when we do a show or a showcase, we have local comics open the show, and then we have the headliner from Seattle or Tacoma close the show.
Okay.
So sometimes the headliner will bring their own feature out, but for the most part, we have 3 or 4 locals that'll open the show, and then the headliner will just close it out, and there's your show right there. So it's super convenient that we're able to open with local talent and kind of limit unless they carpool, and limit the amount of comics that come out. It doesn't make any sense for 2 or 3 people to drive out from different locations on one night,
Yeah.
So it's just super convenient in that regard.
Do you got any tricks for getting people to come to these shows? Has it gotten easier over the years?
Yeah, years is the right word there. You really got to stay patient. A lot of people that I think jump into producing comedy shows have no idea what marketing and promoting these shows entails, and the amount of work and effort, and just, I think that's the one thing that really prevents people from doing shows, is the promoting and marketing aspect of it. But for me, I think I just learned as I went. Obviously started with hard flyers everywhere, just talked about it with all my friends. And then kind of took that and built it into some paid ads. I like to put money into comedy events, even if people don't show up as a result. I like to at least get eyes on this is a thing in this area. And I feel like comedy for me lately has been where I guess an analogy would be where you get like a snowball on a hill. It starts out real small and you try to roll it down. You try to roll it down so it grows on its own, but it takes like a few times to get that roll going. And right now I'm just in the midst of the ball rolling, right? And now I'm just kind of like trying to keep up with it, you know? So I think it's important when you start promoting your shows for the long run to just look at it that way, like you're building up to something. And that something is that when you become established, that the momentum you gain from marketing and promoting, you just feed on and keep it going and going and going and never stop. And that's the consistency part of it that I think a lot of people struggle with. So I would say just stick with it, never stop promoting. And people have joked that I'm the kind of guy that will market it and promote a comedy show at a funeral, you know, because I mean, and that's the kind of mindset you have to have, you know.
Yeah. Talk to me about finding venues and venues in general. Have you had any venues for more than 10 years, or is the shelf life pretty quick? And are you constantly looking for new venues, or you got your venues and you stick with them, or what's that been like?
Yeah, so Dog Days is our longest running venue, and that's 10 almost 10 years now, I think. And Remedy has been a solid venue. They opened up. You were at Remedy.
Yeah.
They opened up right after COVID, so I've been there for about 4 or 5 years now. Every Wednesday, open mic, and then some shows on Sundays. I've worked at probably 25 different venues in the last 5 years. I think we have 6 to 8 usually on rotation that I go through. I will say I'm incredibly lucky to live in the Peninsula County that I live in because it was pretty much like open game. Wherever you can think of that has a business, I'm constantly scouting for new rooms, new locations that fit comedy. You know, that some places don't fit comedy, so I'll just go check it out and then leave. And I'm always looking for those types of rooms that kind of fit comedy, that have a good layout, have a stage, just have, you know, good patrons, a nice following and stuff like that. And basically I'll just take whoever wants me, really.
Yeah.
And just keep it going that way. So
Cool. We got a follow-up question from North Carolina here. Congrats. What's the formula to keeping a relationship with a venue that long? So he's talking about that Dog Days Brewing.
I think really if you have a mindset when you keep a relationship with a room that you lay out some rules ahead of time, like an exclusivity type deal where you only do comedy shows through you, because some bars are like, oh, your comedy nights are great, so now we got a different comedy producer to come do some shows, and that never works with comedy. So just make sure you have something in place that's agreed upon in that regard. And then also when you negotiate with these places, take into consideration what it is that they're making money on, right? So the brewery is tough because they're usually just selling beer and snacks and sodas. So there's not a whole lot of money for them to put up towards the show. But if you're at a bar that has a liquor, it has a kitchen, and it has, you know, more ability to make money off the show, then you can bargain a little bit more for a budget for those rooms. But at the end of the day, there's different types of negotiating that you can settle on. But what should always be the priority is it always being a win-win scenario.
Yeah.
Where both sides are win, no one's taking a loss. And I think sometimes with producers, they'll be too concerned with always winning that they won't be concerned with the venue taking a loss. So you have to be aware of how much money is being spent, how much is a safe negotiation, and just continue to be transparent and have a good line of communication with the venue. And I would say that's really a good start for keeping those types of relationships.
That's great. Can you talk more about the exclusivity? And I want to get into poaching in a little bit, and also ask you about, like, have people come into your area, maybe not one of your venues, but your area over this, 10 plus year period? and how has that played out?
Well, I will say my nickname has become the Godfather of comedy in Kitsap because
Seahorse heads.
yeah. So I guess the thing is that I don't care who does comedy in this general vicinity that we're in. I just want you to put on a good show.
Okay.
If you're a new producer and you're booking open micers as your closers and calling them headliners, and the show is a shit show, and the crowd walks away upset or just thinking, I'm never going to do that again.
Yeah.
That hurts all the comedy producers in the area, because these patrons that go to these shows, they don't know whose show this is. They usually don't differentiate between producers. So that's just their impression of comedy in that area. So if you're that kind of person that's doing shit shows, then yeah, I'll say something to you. But if you put on a good show, I'll support you and help you in any way that I can. But it's important when you do shows at a venue that you have that agreement, because if another producer comes in, then you have to try to work around their dates. You have to try to work around their type of comics that they're booking. And it's just so much better to be like anybody that wants to produce a show. So if someone emails the venue, then you just let them know to send that email to you. And then you'll handle it on whether or not you'll book that person that's trying to get there. As far as poaching rooms goes, definitely understand the difference between going into a room when someone's producing already and what you're allowed to do and not do, which you don't usually talk shows if someone's already doing shows there. But also, if that producer gets fired from that venue and you go in there later, or they ask you to do shows there, if the producer prior is fired, then it's free game. You're not poaching their room, even if you do a show a month later, So it's important to understand that if a venue reaches out to you and you go to the Facebook page or wherever they post the events and you see that they're already doing comedy, you have to now then ask them, who else is this person you were working with? And maybe even ask them what kind of negotiation you guys settled on. So that way you can kind of understand what it is, because sometimes these producers will come into rooms and they'll do a show for free. And that's the worst thing you can do, because then the next person that comes in to do shows there, if they want to have someone else, and then they're like, well, this person did it for free. Why are you asking for $250?
Right.
So
have you ever had a national company come in and do a show in your area?
Not really. I've had bigger name producers do shows at rooms that I was actively doing an open mic or something like that, but never really a point to where I've had to say, hey, back off, this is my room, or anything like that.
Yeah.
And mostly I think that's just because when I do talk to these venues, they already know how to handle those situations.
Yeah. So can you speak to the exclusivity conversations you have? Is this something like written down, or is it a handshake? Or
I've never liked doing stuff in writing. I've always been more of a handshake agreement kind of guy, and basically just tell them, hey, I want you to only work with me. If we have any issues or you have any concerns, or if someone else hits you up, please let me know. Just communicate that to me. And a lot of times they don't know why you're asking for that. So just a quick breakdown of why that is and why you can't have multiple producers in one show, right? Because in music, you can have multiple producers doing music. It's just a matter of managing the calendar. But with comedy, I think it's just too different of an art form to have multiple producers in one show. So it's just something that you have to get lined up with the venue. I think is crucial for long-term success, basically.
Yeah. You got some fans out there. Just a reminder, everybody who's tuned in, we've had dozens over the course of this. You can ask questions. Just type them into Twitch or YouTube, and we got a couple comedians here just talking shop. If you have a question about how comedy works, or about show running, or really anything at all, if you want us to punch up a joke, I'm sure we would be happy to do that. We got about 10 minutes, Joseph. Are there any topics that you want to cover?
Yeah, I think one of the things I was excited to talk to you about was things that we've been doing recently,
Sure.
and things that we have lined up. We've been doing roast battle shows in Kitsap for about 7 or 8 years now. And we're doing them more regularly now than we ever have. But something I want to help get the word out about, and something that I'm excited about, is we have an all-lady roast battle show where anywhere from 6 to 8 lady comics run this roast battle show. And we call it the Mean Girls Roast Battle. And it's been getting mad reviews. It's been getting good turnouts. And we just had our first club gig last Saturday.
Cool.
And it was sold out at 55 people. And it was in Chehalis, so it was in a small town, but it was our club feature, and the girls just crushed it. I mean, they absolutely crushed it. And we have about 12 to 14 female roasting comics that enjoy doing this. And we're just rotating them in and out and having them roast each other and change up opponents. And they get crowned the champion of that room. We've been doing it at theaters locally here in Kitsap. And it's been going on for about a year now. And I just want to give a shout out to the ladies that are on that show, because they have been just working it and crushing it and putting in the time writing these jokes to craft a very nice show, you know. So shout out to Club Corner. It's called Cornucopia Comedy Club in Chehalis is where we were at last Saturday. It's a new club, only been open for a couple months, but they did a remodel on the venue and it looks fabulous. So
is it mostly a music venue?
No, before it was like it was like a brewery type venue, and then they remodeled it into a comedy club, basically.
Oh, it is like a full-time comedy club.
Yeah, full-time comedy club.
Yeah, very cool. That's neat. Tell me about the format of these shows.
So the format of the roast battle show is we get all the comics to go up and do a 5 to 6 minute set, so the crowd can get to know them a little bit, and then we do the roast battle, where it is a shot for shot, 5 jokes, 1v1 with 3 pairs. And then after they roast each other, then we open it up to the hot seat, which I'm super proud of because it was an original idea. I'm not going to say it was the first hot seat that's ever been done in a roast battle, but we've been doing it pretty regularly for a few years now. And that's where we put the stool center stage, get all the comics on the show lined up behind them, and they each take 2 minutes at a time sitting in the hot seat and getting roasted endlessly, as rapid fire style, as many times as they can.
By the panel or
by all the comics on the show.
Okay, so the comics are in line behind them with mics roasting the person in the chair?
Yeah.
Okay.
And you can find those hot seats on the Comedy in Kitsap YouTube channel. And it's just so much fun, because what we do also as a little surprise is that after we roast all the comics in the hot seat, then we get an audience member who wants to come up and sit in the hot seat and get roasted by all the comics for 2 minutes. And that has been so much fun and just a great way to close the show. And then we'll take the tip jar around and say, hey, if you leave a tip in this tip jar, we'll give you the option to be complimented or roasted. And of course, most people choose roast, but every now and then they say compliment. And personally, I'm horrible with compliments, so it ends up still being a roast. But for the most part, that's the structure, just nice and simple. Yeah, it's been working out tremendously well. So it's been cool to be able to have something. And we also have our first Tacoma Comedy Club gig lined up for the Mean Girls Roast Battle on Sunday, May 3rd. So we're excited about that for sure.
Very cool. So the tip thing, how exactly does that work? They drop something in a tip jar and you roast them right then, or do they all get up in line to go up on stage after they tip?
Yeah, so since everyone is already on stage in line, they'll have one wireless mic and the stage mic, and then I'll go around with the tip jar with my wireless mic. So there's 3 mics available for the comics to rotate out. And so, yeah, I'll just go around to each one, and as soon as they put the money in there, we roast them. And I will say I pay attention to how much money they put in that tip jar. If you put $1 in there, we'll give you 1, maybe 2 roasts. But if you put a 20 in there, we're going to light you up.
Yeah.
So, and it's always a great way to end the show.
All right, we got a question online. Maybe you know this person. Who's the best at tip for roasts?
Some quick people that come to mind are comedian Max Wysong, Drew Lopez, Janelle Chavera, Chris Atkinson, just some local bangers that are able to come up with some really good roasts on the fly. And what we'll do sometimes in the hot seat when we bring up the audience members, we'll do a quick interview. We'll ask them where they work, their relationship status and all that. And then most of it's just off that, or when we take the tip jar around, what they look like, because obviously we don't have time to get to know each comic and what they do. So we'll just roast on how they look, basically.
Right. All right, switching gears back to regular comedy shows. I think it's incredible that you've been doing this 12, 13 years. What has changed in comedy over that time? And just take out the pandemic. So just when everything was open, like is running a show today the same as it was 11, 12 years ago, or have some factors changed?
Well, it was nice when I started doing comedy because there really wasn't a whole lot of shows, maybe a monthly show somewhere at a bar for a fundraiser, but for the most part, there wasn't a whole lot. So I had all reign to just go to any bar to try to do shows. When I started booking shows, I did it as a way to also get stage time for myself because I got a family of 3 kids. I can't keep traveling to Seattle and Tacoma for 3 minutes or 4 minutes of time. So part of producing shows was also to give myself the opportunity to work on my craft. And it was a little easier, I think, to book shows in the past 10, 11 years ago because people were a little bit more excited about it. But I think it's become so popular now. And part of the reason why is because even I think to take COVID out of consideration would be interesting, just because after COVID, when everything started to reopen in 2021, I quit my job. It was a dream job, selling weed at a dispensary. I never thought I would do this, but when I saw that they were opening the economy and there was no form of entertainment going on because all the bands had either broke up or someone in the band died, there was no trivia, there was no sip and paint, there was no form of entertainment. So I noticed immediately that to put together a comedy show is going to be easy because comics have been sitting on the bench for a year and a half, eager, chomping at the bit to do comedy again. So I booked as many shows as I possibly could after COVID, and we packed every location for 2 years after COVID. So to me, I consider the post-COVID time of 2022 to 2024 the golden era of my comedy life because it was so easy to book shows and get turnout. I didn't have to pay for any ads. There was no form of entertainment, and people were hungry and excited to go out again. And so I kind of just built off of that. We did 169 comedy events in 2023, and we did 170 comedy events in 2024. So, and only 4 or 5 of those were duds. So that just goes to show like how things were back then. I'm noticing that last year I did far less shows. This year is picking up, but I feel like now the bands are back. Now the trivia nights are back. The comedy events are way more competitive to try to pull off. So I think right now is a good time for comedy, but it's also a very difficult time if you're not already an established comedy producer because you're going to be working uphill big time if you start comedy right now.
Yeah. All right, we got to start winding this down. I do want to talk a little bit about you and your comedy. Maybe frame this as like, what are some of your upcoming goals? What's something you're really proud of? You've been doing comedy a long time.
Yeah, so part of the thing is that I try not to think about this too much, but I wonder where I would be as a stand-up comedian if I wasn't producing shows, like if I was just focusing on my stand-up, right? But I think I'm finally at that point where I've developed a 15 to 20 minute clean set. And for me, that's a pretty big deal because I'm a naturally raw, dirty comic for bars and stuff like that. But I just recently did a show for Louis Fox where he had me feature for him at Tacoma Comedy Club. And I knew I had to be clean, but what I did not know was that there was going to be 30 kids there. So half the audience was kids from 8 to 14 years old. And I kind of froze up and I still managed to get the time in. I talked a lot slower than I normally do, but I pulled it off. I did a clean set. So for me to actually start building a clean set and a dirty set, because I have an hour dirty, I'm trying to crunch down to 45 tight. And I've been working on that for a few years now. But to get a 20-minute clean set for me, I think would just open up so many more avenues and opportunities in comedy to potentially take me to a different area. You know what I mean? So yeah, that's kind of where I'm at in comedy right now.
Nice. All right. Any closing thoughts? Anything? What's a goal for 2027?
I think a goal for 2027 is just to keep up the good quality shows, try to get more theater and club gigs, and basically start working on a Pacific Northwest comedy tour where I can regularly, every year, go through the same venues, go through the same areas of town, and just book Mean Girls roast battles, regular roast battles, comedy shows, any kind of comedy content, uploading more reels consistently, building my online following for myself and the Comedy and Kitsap page, and potentially just trying to network with enough clubs and theaters that we can make comedy a full-time thing for me and 12 of my best friends, basically.
It's amazing. What you built is really incredible, Joseph. Thanks for taking time to talk to us. Stick around for a second. Everybody, check out Comedy in Kitsap next time you're in the Seattle or Tacoma area. And don't stay in those big places. Go over to the peninsula. It's cute. It's adorable. I've been there. It's great. And follow Joseph. Awareness is all. We got to thank you coming in from North Carolina. We'll see everybody next week. Stick around for a second, Joseph.